and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Green Acres dairy calf beef participant Martin Connolly from County Roscommon. Martin gives an insight into his 21 to 22 month Friesian bull beef system as part of the Beef Masterclass series. I first asked Martin to tell me about his farming system.
We run a calf to beef system. We finished the animals as bulls under 24 months, and we're kind of maybe trying to adjust that a little bit now to bring the ages down and finish them nearer to 20 months at much the same weight. That's the target anyway, Catherine.
And what kind of bulls are you bringing on to finish?
They're all Friesian bulls. For
this year, how many calves have you bought in?
We've 168 calves on the ground there now. We bought in 170, but we had 2 fatalities earlier on. But we have 168 calves on the ground now.
Martin, where do you source the calves from?
Yeah, we source the calves locally from 4 or 5 dairy farmers. I would be buying off them for a number of years now, and I've kind of built up a good relationship with them as far as getting the calves off them, and we'll be very happy with the way the calves come, like as far as health is concerned, and you know they get a good start in life with them, so it leaves it a bit easier for me to follow on from that, Catherine.
Yeah, it's very important, and I presume you have some weaned at the moment. How are you transitioning those that are weaning at the moment to turn out?
Yeah, well, we'd have started rearing calves back in November, and there'd be a batch of calves gone to grass now for about 6 weeks. There'd be about 40 calves gone to grass over 6 weeks, and they would have been getting about 3 kilos a meal in the shed, maybe for at least 5 weeks before they were moved out. And then we continued on with meal, maybe at the rate of 2 kilos after them going out. Plus, at that time, weather was bad, and we were also giving them a bit of straw just for fibre and that. And now they have all moved on to silage after grass, and they're down to 1 kilo. And they'd be probably averaging about 180 kilos now, or 190 at the minute.
And how is the progress to date of the ones that you're just weaning at the moment?
It's quite good. Yeah, we weighed some there only a week ago, and they would be weaned off milk maybe about a month, and they had averaged near enough to 0.9 kilos a day from the day we got them. That have been doing maybe 0.75 to 8 during the milk feeding term, and then once they got up on the meal, they'd be eating about 3 kilos a meal now at the minute, and they'd be just doing over 1 kilo. They're actually doing over 1 kilo now on the last weigh-in. So we'll be happy enough with them. They're getting a little bit of silage added into them now. They're still in the shed, and we'll be moving them out in the next week or 2.
For the stock that are gone out, how are you managing them at grass at the minute? You mentioned they're on after grass from the silage. How will they be rotated around for the rest of the grazing season?
Yeah, well, this was something that I started last year, and I suppose it was being part of the Green Acres programme maybe that spurred it on. We'll be using a paddock system with those now, and about every 3 days, Catherine, we'll be moving the calves on, and we found a big plus in that, I think, for especially, for Thrive and for managing grass as well, like, because we would be taking out paddocks from time to time as the year goes on. Anything that will get overgrown, we take it out as bales.
And the bull beef system that you're in, it's a very specialised system. How are you finding grazing the yearling bulls now at the moment?
We don't find any difficulty in grazing them now. I suppose we're at it for a good while, and we're kind of an established kind of a system, and we're kind of used to what we're doing. And normally we'd graze them in 3 different groups on 3 different plots of land, with a group of about 30 to maybe 34 or 5 maximum in each group. And of course, they'll be all electric fenced, and we'll be paddock grazing those as well.
And obviously, grass is a key focus on the farm. How are you managing grass currently?
We'll be okay for grass now. We're actually taking out paddocks at the minute. We'd have took some in the last couple of weeks, some excess grass and paddocks that might be going too strong. We were a bit tight. Maybe we put out one bunch of bulls the 1st of March, which would be a little bit early for us here, but we had feel the land that was reseeded and we wanted to try and eat it off. And weather wasn't just that good maybe for March and into April, of course. And we did some little bits of damage, and they took quite a bit of ground just to keep them out. We thought we might have to put them in at a stage, but we managed to keep them out. But they did take in a fair bit of ground over that period to keep them out. Those bunch now, we'd be targeted to put them in the next week or two for finishing inside. And
what weight would they be at the moment?
They were 358 kilos when they went out the 1st of March. So, they're out 110 or 15 days. So normally we'd get about 1.2 kilos over the grazing season on the bulls. So given that they had maybe a tough couple of weeks at the start and some inclement weather, even at a kilo a day, so we'd be saying maybe 3 or 470, maybe 480 kilos maybe now. We'd be expecting those to come in in the next week or so.
Martin, when do you intend to finish them bulls, or what's the plan from now till then once they go into the shed?
Yeah, well, we'll be starting them off on the bale silage now that we've been collecting there for the last few weeks, and we'll be giving them meal through the diet feeder there, and maybe start at 3 or 4 kilos and move it up to probably 8 kilos, I'd expect, maybe 9, depending on the quality of the silage. And we'll be hoping to start selling out of that at maybe the end of September, beginning of October, giving them 100 or 120 days, and hopefully that'll be okay, that there'll be a good enough finish on them at that stage.
And for last year's bulls that you did finish, what kind of killouts or grades did they come into?
Well, normally we'd nearly always weigh the cattle going out in the morning, and we're getting 52% is nearly a rule of thumb with them. We might get a little bit over, we might get a little bit less at times, but generally it's running at around 52%. And we'll say those 55 bulls killed so far this year, and we probably would have, we'll say, an O equals about 35%. O minus would be run at 13%. P grades 1%, O plus grades 32%, and R grades about 7%. That's in the confirmation. And as far as the fat grade will be concerned, 2 minus would be about 2%, which would be small enough on some of maybe the plainer bulls. That would be like the P grade bulls maybe. The 2 equals would be running at about 23%. 2 plus would be at about 26%. And 3 plus grades there would be around 49%. So we'll be quite happy with the fat grade on them.
Definitely. And your market for these bulls, I suppose, in the system you're in, it's important to have a good relationship with the processor in advance of bringing them on to finish.
Well, I think so, because I know that has been difficulties there in the past. And I think because we have a tradition of finishing the bulls and selling them through the one processor locally here the whole time, that they kind of keep taking the cattle off us. And so far we have had no problem getting the cattle killed. But I think if you were entering into that new or fresh, you would need to be making some arrangements as far as getting them processed to be concerned,
And you mentioned there the importance of quality silage, particularly in the finishing stages. Last year, what was the quality of your silage like?
Yeah, we were lucky last year. We cut our first crop there the 11th of May last year, and it came in at 76 DMD. And our second cut came in around the 26th or 7th of June, and that was 75 DMD. So that made a big difference to maybe the amount of meal we had to feed to the finishing bulls. I think we averaged at about 8 kilos last year for the finishing bulls. And it also made a big difference to our weanlings last year. We had our weanlings came out of the shed, we'll say this last spring, 45 kilos heavier than the previous year. Now, I know it wasn't maybe all down to the silage alone, but it had a big part in it. And I think just going back there, the weanlings, I'd say would have benefited because they had all been vaccinated. We went through a good vaccination program in spring for pneumonia, and that really was a success in my eyes there for last year. And we had no problems with pneumonia, which I'd say contributed to the extra weight gain. Plus the fact that we worked the paddock system as well, because of the Green Acres program and whatever, we worked the paddock system. So I think the whole lot contributed to a nice bit of extra weight gain. And we're kind of seeing the value of that now with these cattle. They'll be going in maybe 2 months earlier than normal because of their weights, you know.
You mentioned there the importance of the vaccination. What's your herd health plan for the farm now with regard to dosing over the coming months as these bulls are going into the shed?
Well, we will be taking a dung sample maybe in the next couple of weeks from all those older bulls, and we probably will be dictated by that to some degree, Catherine, as to what we will dose, you know. Normally, after about 6 weeks in the shed, we would give them a fluke dose, you know, just to be sure. And we'll see what the samples turn out like as to whether we'll worm dose them or not, you know. But I don't think we have an issue so far. We did get some samples done on the calves that went out there a couple of weeks ago, and there was only a very small, we'll say, concern. There was really no concern about roundworms in them at the time, even though we would normally dose the calves every month to 5 weeks with an oral drench there during their first summer. Yeah.
The fact that came back with no issue for dosing at the moment, when will you tend to take fecal samples again?
We probably will be taking some in the next couple of weeks as part of the Green Acres program. That's part of the program to do the samples maybe a couple of times, 2 or 3 times during the year. So we'll be having a look at those again. But normally, I suppose, just to err on the safe side, I would be giving a white oral drench to the calves at grass just to protect against lungworms mostly.
Martin, obviously bulls can be hard managed. How do you work with regard to safety and the bulls on your farm?
Well, I suppose at their age, there probably isn't maybe as much danger associated with them, Catherine. And the nature of them being hand reared, and that leaves them that bit quieter. But you can never be sure as far as a bull is concerned, you know. And it doesn't really be an issue maybe at the early part of the year, but certainly when the cattle would be housed and on feeding for a couple of months, you would have to be more careful and vigilant with them when you be maybe doing any changing or moving on them, or sorting them for the factory, or that you would, and we would be taking extra precautions with them, you know. Yeah.
Finally, Martin, you mentioned there how you're moving more from a 24-month system back to a 20-21-month finishing system. What do you think are the 3 key parts to your system to making it efficient going forward?
Well, I suppose we'll be working on all this, maybe definitely the calf coming in, and the health of the calf and the vaccination. And I think to make it more efficient, you have to do every little thing. And when you do all the little things, I think then you reap the reward at the end. There's no point waiting maybe till the animal is a year old and then think that you're going to gain a lot of ground. I don't think you will. So we would be kind of focusing definitely on the calf management and rearing at the beginning, and the health of the animal, keeping good grass ahead of them as much as possible, you know. And definitely good quality silage is key as well, as far as keeping the costs of concentrates down. And in the finishing period especially, there mightn't be much of a change. In the first year, we probably would be keeping a little bit of meal to them just to keep them going. But definitely for the finishing period, the good quality silage, in my mind, is very important there to keep costs down, you know.
Thanks, Martin. That's a great insight into your farming system.
Okay, thanks, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Martin for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.